Hi guys, I just thought before I go any further with the engine and the transmission on the truck and the electrics and whatnot, I thought I'd have a look at the suspension. Now I had a look yesterday at the front end, and I've got the front end working quite nice on it now. I found I had another leaf spring from my Tamiya high lift truck from couple of years ago, and I took some out to make it a bit softer. So I've managed to put another leaf in the front, which makes it, support the weight of the engine. But also, I sort of straighten the springs out because I think when they pack them in the box, they kind of like squash them. How long they've been there, God knows. But my springs weren't a nice curve; they had like flats on them and stuff like that. But I'm going to just show you what I did. I know Dennis has covered it, similar sort of mod, but it's, when I got this truck, the oil was pouring out of these. It was all over the body, in the box, everywhere. It was a right mess. And I thought, well, I'll have a look at them later on. Let's get the engine in first. So that's what I've done. But the reason, one of the main reasons that these leak, there is two reasons, but this is the one that I've modified. It's lovely and smooth, and it actually damps. This is one I've taken straight off the truck. There's actually, I know the oil's all leaked out, but it's all wobbly, so it's going to leak out of there. And one of the biggest things on it is there's no seal in the end of this. That's a contra-rotating piston. Now look, there's no seal in there. So how is that expected to actually go in there? And it sits up that way. It's not doing any favours, but it's actually sitting there like that. The oil's bound to come out. Now, what they've got in there is a little piston in there. Yeah, let's take this out and I can show you. Now this little contra piston here is like you get on the modern shops. You get like a diaphragm that goes in the top. It just like displaces the air, takes the gap up where the air should be, and it springs up and down. Now this has got a seal on it. Now maybe that was made to seal tight in there, I don't know, to go up and down and seal, but it doesn't. The oil just pours straight through there, and obviously, and it goes through there and back of there, and it just pours out everywhere. Now, I've done a little mod for mine. It's nothing, it's quite a simple little thing. But I've also noticed as well, on all my shocks, I don't know if you can see it there, I'll point it out, there's a little mark on there. Can anyone, I don't think you can see that, I can't get it in focus, but every shock's got like a cut in it or a mark on it, like it's been held by pliers or something, and it's really sharp, and it's not doing, I know it's right at the top here, but it's not doing, the seals any good. When you push them on, it could cut the seal. So on the others, I've actually polished it up, but for as it is now, I'll just put it together and we'll see how we go from there. Now, in this end, you have, take these out, you have one seal, which is in here on a little plastic spacer. Now, the plastic spacer is very thin. I know Dennis picked it out and done it. It's very thin. So I made a slightly thicker one because, this is what the piston rod that sort of runs on. It's like a bearing, if you know what I mean, a sliding bearing. So, it needs to be quite a good fit. And what I've done here, this is a little bit of PTFE that I've actually got. And because there's no seal in there, I'll just push that in there and then just screw that in there so it sits nice and flat at the bottom. But that now is like a PTFE seal, which is in the bottom there. Can you see that? You can see where the oil's just gone round it now, but when you screw that down tight, that grips into there. So even if the oil goes past this little piston here, it doesn't come out. I mean, that one's bone dry, and the two I've done yesterday on the front of my other truck have been like really good. So I just put them in, put that little seal in the back of this part here, and then this one, I mean, you have to run really thin oil in these shots, because that piston hasn't got any flats on it or holes or anything on it because it's so small. So that's another reason why it leaks, because the oil, you know, is so thin. So put the piston in there and the rod, and then I'll put the seal on. Now, if you can get silicone O-rings of these, which I will try and get, they are so much nicer. They're so smooth, and you know, they work a lot better. But this is the little bearing piece I made, slightly thicker than that one in there. I think it's about 1.3. And I don't use this metal washer either, because that grinds up and down on that. You don't really want that in there like that. So then you screw that back on there, and you've got a nice fit. And it's kind of, there's no wobble in that, a little tiny bit, but it's nice. And you know, once you, I'm using this is a kosher oil, but you've got to use like 100 weight, because if you put any thicker in, it doesn't want to move. So let's just put, and I'll fill it up to the, well, I didn't want to do that, but I've gone and filled it up to the top. So let's just take a little bit out. I kind of keep it to level with the thickness of this little piston. So you pop that back in there, and this spring is very easy to lose. Don't ask me how I know. Now you just screw that back on there, like so, and straight away you can feel that is absolutely lovely. Now, you just, if it's too tight or it's bottom out, just let a little drop of oil out of here. So just undo it, give it a few little pumps, let the oil out of what you got there. Let's just clean it up with a bit of rag. Now, I hate this silicone oil, so slippery. Right, so now it can't leak out the bottom there. It can't leak out the top, because being a thicker kind of spacer of that plastic, it just squishes the O-ring down very, very slightly. And with the PTF seal in the bottom here, then obviously that will stop it leaking out of there. As I say, they do sit up like that. And it's absolutely, you know, it's such a difference. If I put, you know, it's an easy thing to do. I'll just put these springs, little springs back on it. You know, and you've gone from a shock with nothing, no shock whatsoever, as quick as that, and you've got an absolute beautiful action on that. I can't tell you how smooth that is, but it's lovely. So, you know, it's not a bad thing to do, you know, if you can do that. But like I say, I've made these little things here. I made a few of them, but you know, that original black one is just a little bit too thin. You can see it's when you look at it closely, it's sort of squashed, so I don't know what it's made out of, but it's not fantastic. Now, the other thing with the suspension I've found, like I said to you, is leaf springs. I don't know if you can see that, but I mean, look, can you see that? They're just flattened off in the centre here where they get clamped up. So, you know, I've got one side lower than the other. I mean, this one is not so bad, you know, that's got a nice curve on it. But this one, as you can see, it's got a right flat on it, so it sort of leans down one side. So I take all these leaves apart, and I just put a nice bend just to get them a nice shape, so they're all the same shape. So when you lay them all together, they all fit on there the same. You know, it's a bit fiddly and it takes a while, but you know, it's well worth it, because the truck sits nice and square and whatever, and we're starting. Now yesterday on my front axle, I don't know if it's the same on all of them, I don't know, but I had to replace a lot of these little screws, because one of them was snapped off, it had no head on it, and then when I went to do the other one, the head was just like glued on, you know, to make it look like there was a screw in there. So I had to completely strip the whole diff. And these screws are so soft. I mean, I've replaced them all now with high tensile, and I use quite a strong Loctite as well. So if they are a bit tight, don't try and sort of keep forcing them, because they'll round off or they'll snap. So just to apply a little bit of heat on there, either soldering iron or a little lamp or something, just to put a bit of heat on there. And you know, it's it's a shame really. I mean, I don't know whether I've got a bit of a rogue kit or what, to be honest, but I've got so many little bits and pieces. Hang on, let's just turn my heater off. I've got so many little bits and pieces on this kit. Like I've got odd screws on the kingpins, and then I've got broken ones on here that have been glued on. I don't know, whatever, but it's not a big deal. I mean, I've got boxes of screws and I can change them all and all that. But yeah, so that was just a little thing. Watch out for these screws. The other thing today, I've got all my parts through from Engine DIY. We're going to try and do the mod on the cam cover, which I've, can recirculate the oil out of the breather up onto the top, which will be a real bonus if you haven't got to keep taking that top off and greasing it up. Even though it works really well, it's a good to have a go. And I bought some new belts in case, if I ever manage to stop the oil coming out, I'll put these new belts on. I've also got my clutch shoes through, so that's a bonus. I bought my tank, nice old Kyosho tank there. And I screw in the bottom, so it's really nice. I've got to space that up a little bit, but nice tank. I always think they'll work well. And at last, I've got my brushless speed controller for my starter motor, so I can get on with that. But I say the last bit I'm going to do now is actually straighten these springs out and sort them out, and hopefully I can get back on with the build again. And I think the next thing I'm going to do is actually fit the fuel tank and start wiring up the starter motor and bits and pieces like that. But you've got to get this suspension sorted out first, otherwise the weight of the truck, I mean, it's increased quite a lot with the engine. But I say I've got it all working. I've got the front working really nice now. So I know it's a bit stiff, but I've had crawlers before. Well, I'm not saying this is a crawler. I don't know what it's going to be. But it's such a light car, and the gearing I got on it might be fairly quick. I know that when Dennis built his one, I was surprised how quick it was. But if you have the suspension too soft when you're running it, it doesn't steer very well, and so it's a little bit stiffer now. But I'm hoping that it's gonna handle pretty well. Being a little stiff. I know leaf spring trucks are not like fantastic, but if you can work at them a little bit, and then you can get them to handle quite well. So I'm going to sign off now, guys, and hopefully I can get my spring straightened out, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.